Okay, welcome back everybody. We're into physical security, and today we're going to be covering barriers and locks.
Okay, there it is, right?
Yep. What we want to talk about today is that barriers are nothing more than an obstacle to restrict movement, to control foot traffic, vehicle traffic, what have you. It's designed to keep persons and animals and vehicles out of restricted areas, allow for controlled access into a facility, and they also define physical limits of the boundaries of where you're working at. Barriers will only delay penetration of an area. Very rarely do barriers prevent penetration. When we're designing our barrier system, we want to keep in mind we're doing protection in depth. We want to start at the very outside of our facility, which has the lowest security. This is the common areas where you have parking. You want to control vehicle traffic in and out. You put up a fence and you have gates and things of that nature. Then you want to move into your medium security area. This is things like where your lobbies and your entry points where visitors are coming. And then your high security areas or your restricted areas where you have greater access control and you have higher standards of barriers. You never have the highest security level or higher security level enclosed outside your lowest security level. So keep that in mind whenever you're doing your design here. Barriers, whenever you're building barriers, you can use anything. The side of a building, fence line, natural barriers. You can even dig a moat around your castle if you want to. That's a barrier. But whenever you have a barrier up, you want to make sure you have clear zones on both sides of the barriers. It doesn't do you any good if you have bushes growing up against your barriers that the bad guys can hide into while they're cutting through your barriers. So you want to keep a clear zone. 20 feet or more from the exterior side of the structure, 50 feet or more from within the structure. This gives you a clear zone where you can do surveillance, do patrols, whatever it is you need to do. Now, if a building forms part of that, you're going to have interior walls and stuff like that that doesn't meet the 50 feet. But keep in mind, you're going to have somebody patrolling that building so they know the interior of the building. Building surfaces. Whenever you're designing a barrier, keep in mind you have more than just a wall. You have the roof. If you have a building that's part of your exterior barrier, roof access has to be controlled. If there is a hatch or a doorway on the roof, it has to be secured. You must make sure your exterior walls are at least as tough as your the other part of your barrier. Floors, make sure they can't dig in under your building and come up through the floors. Now, there are some buildings out there that have cable raceways in the flooring. It's called a floating floor system where everything is run under the floors, and that'll give them access too. So you have to keep that in mind. Make sure your ceilings are meet your barrier standards. And what I'm talking about is a lot of buildings have drop ceilings in them. That's not part of your barrier. You want to make sure your walls run all the way up to the hard ceiling above the drop ceiling, and make sure that any access points through those walls in the ceiling are secured. You want to make sure your doors are secured, windows. Any window, if you're using a building as part of your exterior barrier, you want to make sure the windows, if they're under 18 feet from the ground, are secured as well. That's bars or whatever else you're going to use. You need to look at shafts, especially running under your fence line. If you have a culvert running under there, it's greater than 96 square inches. You've got to have a grating over that so people can't get in. And you need to look at things like vents and ducts. Pretty common sense stuff. Okay, any building opening should be protected if it's less than 18 feet above ground. Any opening in your barrier greater than 96 inches or larger should be protected. Put a grate on it. And a lock. There are the 4 types of barriers we're going to be dealing with today. Okay, there's the natural barrier, structural barrier, human barriers, and it's not stacking humans up as a barrier, but barriers to prevent humans from walking around. So don't get excited. You can't go out and shoot a bunch of people and stack them up along your perimeter there. And then you have animal barriers. Here's some common natural barriers we deal with. We got things like water barrier. Water barriers, you have a few unique problems you need to deal with. They have underwater access to your facility, especially if you have outflow vents. You need to look at those. I saw some really great mesh sensor stuff that you can put over outflows that would give access to your facility, that if it's disturbed in any manner, it will sound an alarm. So you can alarm these things. Water barriers also have the unique problem of lighting. Water is reflective, especially at night, so you want to make sure you use proper lighting for it. Rocks and mountains, they form a natural barrier. Utilize it where applicable. Desert, it's a pretty good barrier, and marshes are pretty good barriers. Those are your natural barriers out there. Now, when dealing with rocks and mountains, you want to be aware of geological faults in the area. Is a rock slide going to be possible? Do you have seismic sensors that would trip if you have a rock slide? You need to keep these things in mind whenever you're utilizing these natural barriers. Desert, you probably don't want to use animal barriers such as canines in the desert. They don't do too well. They don't last too long. So everything has a strength and a weakness, so you need to look at it. Marshes, the only thing I can say about marshes is they breed mosquitoes, so be aware of that. Now here's some structural barriers. You got fences, ditches, walls. We're going to get into fences here in a little bit. Every one of these has a positive and negative aspect to it. Fences, as we said earlier, are not designed to prevent penetration, only to delay it. And if you have alarms on your fences, that will notify you of penetration and allow you time to respond. Ditches, you can get over them. It just makes life difficult for the people trying to penetrate. Whenever you're building walls, keep in mind the cost of building a wall, and make sure you allocate the appropriate the finances for it, because it's very, very costly. And you want to pick the best material. Structural barriers are made from a variety of material: wood, metal, masonry, plastic, glass, whatever you got. Let's talk a little bit about glass here for a minute. I actually went out and found the wired glass I was talking about earlier on Friday. There's a sample of it. You don't see it too much anymore. There is a new product out there to where it's not just wired glass, but the actual wires in there are sensors. If you break any of them, an alarm goes off, so that's probably going to be a big comeback for it. Here's the problem with tempered glass. Whenever it's broken, it does form a barrier. It breaks easily, and it breaks off in big chunks. It's not like safety glass. Okay, there's a cut hazard there, so you want to keep that in mind. I would never use tempered glass on ground floor windows. And I always use laminated glass like we have over here. And it's designed, you have glass on the outside, you have a little plastic inner layer right there, and then another pane right there. Now, if you're going to be designing with laminated glass in the ground floor, you always want to use triple pane. That is 3 panes of glass, 2 plastic inserts, okay? Thermal glass. Okay, the reason you want to use thermal glass is because if there's any space between the laminate and the glass here, weather changes could cause it to break. So use thermal glass. Okay, acrylic plexiglass is no longer rated as bullet resistant like it was whenever I was a kid, and they used to shoot at it with machine guns. The reason being is because ballistics has gotten so advanced that for you to use plexiglass as bullet resistant, it would have to be extraordinarily thick and expensive to use. So they're using a polycarbonate. That's a carbon-based glass, plastic glass, and it's used in laminated glass. The more layers, they're thinner, and they're more bullet resistant. And fences. Fences only delay penetration. You got to supplement a fence line with alarms or surveillance. By surveillance, I mean you can use perimeter CCTV inside your perimeter. You can use foot patrols, guard force, or you can use canine surveillance. It's all good to go. Okay? And here's some examples of the different types of fence you can use. You have your chain link fence up here, which is just standard. This one's about 6 foot tall, no top guard on it. You have a masonry fence. This is more of a decorative masonry fence, but it's the only picture I could find. Generally, they're about 8 feet tall. If they're 8 feet tall, you have some sort of protection on the top of them. I've seen broken glass bottles set in concrete up there. Not recommended. But you might want to put a sensor wire up there, or put infrared detectors up there, so that if the beam is broken, you got an idea of penetration. Wooden fences are mostly used for decorations. They're not really considered security fences. There's metal fences, like this one down here, and then expanded metal fences, which looks like the top of a barbecue pit from whenever I was a kid. Very effective. It also serves to reduce observation from outside the fence line, but there are other things you can use. It's hard to cut. You just can't stick a bolt cutter in there because these things are about 3/4 of an inch, and it's hard to cut them. If you do cut them, it draws attention to yourself. Very good fence line. Very expensive. Come on. All right, moving along. Let's see. Chain link fence. This is probably the standard fence line you see around most government facilities and some state facilities. It's inexpensive, it's effective, and you can set it up in a wide variety of ways to increase your protection. The trick to getting a good chain link fence is make sure the posts are set exactly the same distance apart, equal distance, okay? You want to make sure that 2/5 of the post is set in the ground. So if you're going to have a 7 foot tall fence, you want a 2.5 foot set in concrete. Whenever you're putting this thing together, at each post there's usually a metal bar in which you clamp the chain link to it with metal brackets. You want to make sure that whenever you bolt those things together, that the bolts go from outside to in, and the nuts are tapped or welded so that they can't be manipulated from the outside. The fabric is at least 9 gauge or higher, and it has an opening of 2 inches or less, okay? You can also run a tension wire in there, so if the tension wire parts or slacks off, it sets off an alarm. And you can include top guards. Let's talk a little bit about that. Standard top guard, you can see here on this one that the fence posts are no more than 10 feet between posts. There's a tension wire running along down here. You can barely see it. And you might want to put a tension wire at the top so that if it's pulled away from the post, it shows, and run one through the middle. A lot of times you will see a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch braided steel cable running right about here through these fence lines. That's called a vehicle barrier. It won't stop them from knocking the fence down, but they won't drive too far dragging that much fence. What it does is it pulls the whole fence with them, and it doesn't separate. Now this is your top guard up here. It's usually on a 45-degree angle facing out. Consists of 3 strands of barbed wire, 6 inches apart. the distance between them, one up the top, middle, and right down here near the bottom. And you can have a double top guard where you got another one facing inward, one facing outward, or you can have a double top guard with concertina wire laid down in the trough between the top guards, the outriggers. Okay. Nice thing about chain link fence, you can put privacy strips in them and keep people from looking into your compound, especially if you have sensitive activities going on. This is recommended right here. Here are the metal brackets I was talking to you about, where it secures the fence to the post and it's bolted on. It holds it to the fence post. And this is where your nuts and bolts are, and you want to make sure they go outside in, and it's tapped on the inside. Different types of barbed wire, not used too much anymore. This is called a double bead right here. It has a barb on one side, then down here on this one, which is separated, would be the next barb. They alternate back and forth. Here's a double bead. This is a single bead with just the barbs put equal distance apart, usually about 4 inches. And here it's double bead with double bar alternating all the way across. Okay. Concertina wire. This is replacing barbed wire. One, it's more cost effective. It's nothing more than a, let me see if I can get this. Okay. All it is ribbon wire where the barbs are razor blades instead of barbs, and it's easy to lay out, cost effective, and hard to penetrate. It can be done, but that's the upside of it, and it's a little bit cheaper than barbed wire. Any questions on wires? Moving right along. Talk about human barriers. Now, all human barriers is to control the movement of human beings in and out of a location. Okay, you can see here we got the guards up here. Everybody flows on the outside of them. Nobody gets through. Same thing with the police officer here. But more commonly, we put up barriers like this just to control non-riot type people. Okay, this is just nothing more than access control. Whenever you're talking human barriers, it's just access control. Have them follow a directed path to and from point A to point B, and that's all we're doing. It requires cooperation from the crowd. I will say that. Now we've got different types of vehicle barriers to avoid penetration by a vehicle. We have bollards right here. You see these commonly on the street here. There are two types of bollards. There's fixed bollards and there's retractable bollards. Retractable bollards are normally used in parking areas or areas where there's not that much traffic flow, normal traffic flow, that you want to be able to prevent vehicles from entering and exit or protecting an entrance or an exit, kind of like parking garages. Then you have these are bollards as well. They're just very decorative bollards. The unique thing about these, and I saw this at ASIS in Chicago, is this thing is solid concrete from about knee level down. There's just a little cavity under here that allows moisture to wick out, and you can put plants and stuff up here. Very heavy. They will stop a vehicle. Then you have your standard Jersey barriers, or what we call K-rails. And then you have your pop-up barriers right here, or vehicle barriers. These are called crash barriers. As a matter of fact, hang on a second. Right here. This is a nice little shot of crash barriers in work. These are fixed. Oopa! And they're effective. Now that is a 5-ton truck carrying another 10 tons of dumpster of 55-gallon barrels filled with sand. And go back. Okay. Sorry about that. and they're extremely effective. The nice thing about crash barriers is they can either be fixed or you can operate them, and you can restrict traffic flow without cutting it off completely. Okay, any questions on barriers? Animal barriers. Puppy. Now, this guy is working a search dog, but it's the best picture I can find. Normally, you work a patrol dog. He works in a patrol route along with his handler. As I said earlier, it's not a good idea to put a patrol dog out on his own running around. Not a good idea. Unless you're running him between two fixed fence lines, and the only authorized access between the two fence lines is to your security force. You can hire canine teams on contract basis, or you can have proprietary canine teams. But you got to remember, you've got to certify your canine and handler to whatever local requirements are, either state or federal requirements. Okay, and you've got to tell your staff that these are not pets. They are working dogs, and they should leave them alone. That's one thing I need to impress upon y'all. Working teams, canine teams are working animals. They are not pets, and that's got to be part of your security briefing. Okay, if there's no questions on barriers, good. Let's move on into locks real quick. Not these kind, but I like the pictures, okay? We have locks here and we have keys here, but this is what we're going to be talking about, mechanical locking. Now, a locking system consists of nothing more than a door or some type of door that can be locked to a frame. Now, in the frame, you're going to set a strike plate or keeper, which is this part right here. It's set some ways in, depending on the size of the door. And then you have your door latch portion. Sorry. This is the bolt that holds it in the frame, holds the door locked into the frame. It's a latch or a bolt right there. There's your handle to operate the latch or bolt, and you can lock it with a key. That's all part of mechanical locking. Now, some basic mechanical locks. This is a warded lock. What that means is there is actually a guideway in here that this has to match up with. These wards right here have to match up with to turn freely to operate the bolt. They're fixed, easy to work around with tools, not a very secure lock. Here's a modern version of it right here. All it is got little raceways in there that these teeth right here on the keys flow through as long as the wards match up to these. Okay? The next is a pin tumbler lock. And what happens is whenever you insert a key into a pin tumbler, this is the way it looks when it's at rest. You see the pins are all at different lengths here. These are the pins right here. And what you're going to do whenever you insert your key, it matches up and levels off all the pins to the shear line right here. These are the drivers right up here, and it's spring-loaded. And you can see how the different cuts match up to the shear, the pins, and forces it up to the shear line. Now you can rotate the key and unlock the lock. One of the unique things about pin locks is you can change out the cores with the master key. If you have the master key, you can rotate pin locks around so that they're not, so if you lose a key to one, you can change it out and replace it with a new pin lock so that old key cannot be used to gain access. Okay. Next is called a wafer tumbler lock, a little bit more secured. You can see it has more than just the pin lock right there. These are wafers. And what happens is the key rotates on these, forcing them up so that it unlocks the key bar. I have got to stop pushing that button. A little bit more secure than a pin lock. You can change the cores out just like you can with a pin lock, but it's not a high security lock. These are different types of combination locks. There's the standard master lock that we used in high school. It's a three number combination. Go back to 0, opens it up, and it pulls the bolt out of the way, and the shackle opens up. This is the new type of lock coming out. It's called an electronic dial lock. You can use them on doors, safes, whatever. What it does is it generates an electrical signal that counts the number of times that you manipulate the dial. After you've exceeded the number of times you can safely do it, it locks itself out for a 24-hour period, or until you call the locksmith to open it up. Okay? It's great for high security areas. It's hard to defeat using tools because it goes into automatic lock, and unless you rip the face off making a bunch of noise and attract attention to yourself, it's hard to get at the bolt and pull it out. Now, these are standard door locks. This is what you have on your house over here, a cylindrical lock. It's uses a pin tumbler. And then you have a Mortise lock over here, which is nothing more than the striker, or the striker here, and a bolt. Okay, it's a double lock. The striker normally just holds it the door closed so that it doesn't flap back and forth in the breeze. But the bolt is your security bolt. You set that, you're good to go. All right, and you can see that it has a striker plate that accepts both bolts. Now, this is an electrical latch. It's not the magnet lock latch. This is one that has a solenoid up the top here, right here, that controls a pin. It's actually an electrical mechanical lock. And whenever the power is applied to it using your pin access or key code or whatever you're using, your swipe card, it will retract the bolt here out of the top of the door. Okay? So it is a electromechanical lock. Okay, here's another type of electrical mechanical lock. You simply replace the striker plate with an electric latch, which is wired, and whenever the door closes, this mechanism right here locks in place until it receives a signal to unlock the door, and then it just flips out of the way and allows the door to open. This is what we're most familiar with here, the mag locks. The good thing is they're fairly inexpensive and very reliable. However, with good steady pressure, you can overcome a mag lock. It takes quite a bit of force, but it has to be steady applied, otherwise you break the door or whatever. The thing about mag locks is if you lose power, they default to the safe position of open. So they're not designed to really keep people out. They're really designed to grant access on a daily basis where you have a receptionist or somebody there that can let people in. Not bad for office, but not too good for a secure area, okay? These are electric lock sets, different types. You can use these in combination with rocker switches, keypad, swipe cards, whatever. Once they receive the signal to open, they just pull the bolt back for you, and you're good to go. Or at least unlock the handle, pull the pin out of the handle, and allow you to operate the bolt. Okay, electrified locking mechanism, some things you need to be aware of. Now, law may require electronic controls of stairwell doors. You can't get access from the stairwell into the building, okay? But you have to have panic bars on the stairwell doors so they can be pushed open in the event of emergency. Unlock the stairwell side of the door without unlatching it to prevent people from becoming trapped in a fire situation. Mechanism consists of a frame of, it's a big mag lock with, so you're good to go. A removal of power from the device releases the deadlocking latch bolt mechanism to allow the door handle to operate. Okay. Ta-da. This is your panic bar right there, standard in most federal buildings right now, and meets fire codes for the most part. Okay, we're talking just a minute ago about fail-safe versus fail-secure. Fail-safe means it will open up, okay, if you lose power, or you can turn them all off in the event of an emergency evacuation. Fail secure, the locking mechanism remains locked when power is lost. You need to protect high security areas. This is the type you need to use right here. They can be overcome with the proper, a locksmith can get you in if you need to get in. Okay? There's alternate sources of power. All right. Any questions on barriers or locks? Did I hang up on everybody? Nope, nope. We're still here.
No, we're still here, Royce. One question I have is, should we use that last address and code that I just sent out to everyone, or what are we going to do?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete every one of those entries, and I'm going to send out a new one today in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And hopefully that one will last more than 2 weeks.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Well, it's the only one I have right now. Any other questions? Look, I need to encourage you people to hit your practice exams, look at the material that has been sent out, review it, and keep taking those practice exams. I can't emphasize that enough. You really need to get familiar with the material. Any of the extra stuff I send y'all is great resources for you. It will help you to understand the stuff other than the limited part I put out to you that meets the test criteria. If you start thinking in the broader scope of how the stuff is used, it will help you with the exam. If you have any questions, everybody has my email address. Please do not hesitate to call me. We're getting to the end of this, people. By the end of March, we should be wrapped up, and I'm getting nervous. Okay. Any questions, folks?
No, thank you, Royce.
Thank you. Y'all have a great day.